Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 19th regular meeting of the Forsyth County Commissioners. And I'd like to mention, I'm glad to see a lot of our social workers here. You'll be up in a moment. I'd like to mention that any citizen that's wishing to be interested in participate in the public session of the portion of the meeting, you can do so by calling 336-422-1200. And you'll be placed on hold until the public session begins. But members of the audience who wish to speak, you may do so by just filling out a card, which is right outside of the door, and you can deliver it to our clerk, Ashley Matthews, right here, and you can do that right up until the time that the agenda starts. So anyone wishing to call in can do so at 336-422-1200, and we'll place you on hold. We're going to begin our meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Woodbury. And I'd like to invite everyone to stand who is able. Thank you. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is a resolution recognizing March 2026 as Social Worker Appreciation Month in Forsyth County. And I'd like to invite Denise Price and all the staff who are here to kind of help come up to receive it. And Vice Chair Wisenhunt is actually going to deliver the proclamation. So you guys can form around, and then afterwards, we'll get a picture of all of you that are here, and that'll get on our Facebook page and website.
I'm so pleased. I'm a member of the HHS board, and I'm delighted to read this resolution for all these wonderful people behind me. Resolution recognizing March 2026 as Social Worker Appreciation Month in Forsyth County, North Carolina. Whereas Forsyth County values social workers in our workplaces and recognizes that they are catalysts for positive change. Whereas Health and Human Service social workers serve as compassionate advocates for individuals and families, working tirelessly to support safety, stability, and well-being across our community. Whereas Social Worker Appreciation Month is a time to honor and recognize the unsung heroes working tirelessly to uplift the lives of others. Whereas social workers are compassionate advocates for change and play a pivotal role in ensuring the well-being of children, families, and older adults. And whereas the Forsyth County Health and Human Services, including social services, behavioral health services, and public health, is joined by numerous individuals, along with public and private organizations who work diligently assisting with the needs of Forsyth County residents. And it is the social workers who strive every day to improve many people's quality of life and advocate on their behalf. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners hereby declares March 2026 as Social Worker Appreciation Month in Forsyth County, North Carolina. And the residents of Forsyth County are encouraged to join in uplifting the social workers in our community and celebrating their constant contribution to our society. And this is adopted on 19th day of March 2026. And that's
I'll second that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all for being here, and we'll pass out the resolution, and anyone would like to make a comment, they could, and then we'll take a picture.
Who wants to be first? You want to do it? Denise, stay up here.
I'm gonna go get it this side.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna get my
The next item on our agenda is a resolution requesting the North Carolina Department of Transportation to process all petitions for additions to the state-maintained secondary road system within Forsyth County. And we also have Kevin Hedrick is here from NCDOT, if anyone would like to ask him a question. Any questions for Kevin Hedrick? Come up if you want, make a comment, would be perfectly appropriate. We appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, Kevin Hedrick, District Engineer with the Department of Transportation. I spoke to a few of you on Tuesday, so just wanted to come back and make sure there wasn't any questions. Requesting this, resolution so we don't have to come back monthly when we're adding roads to the state system. Doing them individually, this gives us a blanket that we can do that, and we don't have to come and take up your time with those. You're allowing us to do that under that. So.
Any questions, Mr. Hedrick? Well, very good. Do I have a motion? Move to approve. We have a motion to approve from, actually I have both from Commissioner Bessie and Commissioner Linville. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the meeting of March 5th, 2026. Do we have a motion? Motion approved by Commissioner Wilson, and I'll second that. Do we have any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, do we have any calls or cards for public session?
Mr. Chairman, we have one speaker card.
All right.
Marcy West, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you very much. Marcy West, 331 Carolina Circle, Winston-Salem, candidate for County Commissioner in District B. I wanted to speak in opposition of the data center that's being proposed in Rural Hall. My understanding is that area is not really in alignment with the Forward 2045 plan. It is very close to residential, agricultural, and schools, and would very much impact them. There would be excessive light and noise, and it would not provide any long-term employment amount. There'd be employment to build it, and then after that, there isn't any return from that. So I would hope that you would really consider that. I also just wanted to note, we have limited land for development in Forsyth County, and so we want to make sure that we're using it for the places that we really need that land. I signed an online petition yesterday, and it was over 1,300 signatures in opposition as of yesterday. So I would just note that. I just had one other quick thing, which has to do with open meetings and materials that go with those open meetings. And I would like to request that when there are last-minute materials for open meetings, that you would make those available. I'd maybe print a couple of extra copies so they're available for people who are participating. On Monday, the budget session, there were a couple of handouts that were not available and then not made available online. And so I think it's really important to make sure that people who are here and are participating and people online have access to those things. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Madam Chairman, County Manager, we're ready.
Thank you,
It's
Mr.
been a
Chair.
good day. It's already a long day,
It is.
starting early.
We're
Thank
doing
you.
good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner, staff, and guests. The agenda items before you have been briefed and hopefully questions answered. Agenda item number 5 is an amendment to the County Facilities Capital Projects Ordinance to transfer unspent proceeds from the 2021A limited obligation bonds and an amendment to the fiscal year 26 budget ordinance to accept a transfer from the County Facilities Capital Projects Ordinance to pay debt service on the 2021A limited obligation bonds and an amendment to the fiscal year 26 budget ordinance ordinance to appropriate fund balance to transfer to the County Facilities Capital Projects ordinance, and an amendment to the County Facilities Capital Projects ordinance to appropriate a transfer from the general fund. Essentially, finance staff, under the guidance of the county's bond council, was recommending utilizing the remaining unspent proceeds estimated at $2,125,000 that's sitting in the 2021A limited obligation bonds account at the North Carolina Capital Management Trust to pay the county's upcoming debt service payment on April 1st. And so this benefit of doing this would stop the clock on the continued accrual of the arbitrage rebate payment due to the IRS. And so proceeds would be transferred to the general fund to pay the debt service on the limited obligation bonds within IRS regulations. The property tax revenue originally appropriated in the general fund to make this debt service payment would become available, and then the available dollars would go into the budget reserve to be appropriated back to the County Facilities Capital Projects ordinance to be used for the final arbitrage payment, with the remaining proceeds available for capital projects.
Do we have a motion? Motion to approve, Commissioner Bessie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 6 is a resolution authorizing Quantum Meruit payment to Consolidated Laundry Equipment, LLC. This would allow us to pay 5 outstanding invoices from 2024 and 2025, totaling $3,287.48. And the issue will be addressed by entering into an annual contract with this company for fiscal year 27.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner Linville. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioners Wilson and Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 7 is an amendment to the Forsyth County fiscal year 26 budget ordinance for the appropriation of funds to behavioral health services pharmacy budget, and a resolution authorizing an increase in the purchase of pharmaceuticals by the Forsyth County Pharmacy. This would increase spending for pharmacy inventory with Cardinal Health, or the lowest cost vendor, by $500,000, and increase the pharmacy budget to an amount not to exceed $3,152,285 for the remainder of the current fiscal year, ending June 30th, 2026.
Excuse me, Manager, I believe there's an error in the ARR that you just read. It's actually 3.6 million, and I can tell you the exact number. Give me just a minute, or you can look in the resolution.
Thank you, Denise.
It's $3,652,285, but you are correct. It was an increase of $500,000. There was just a typo in what you had.
Thank you.
Ashley, do you mind pulling that up so that we can all take a look at is this the corrected one? Do you have the corrected one in front of you? You can put on the easel?
I believe Ashley has pulled it up.
She did.
Yeah, but this one, is this the correct one?
Yeah, I think my notes, I just typed it wrong on my script. So it is correct in your agenda. I am just reading it incorrectly.
Okay, so say it again, because I guess.
Yep, so I will do that one more time. So this would increase spending for pharmacy inventory with Cardinal Health, or the lowest cost vendor, by $500,000, and increase the pharmacy budget to an amount not to exceed $3,652,285.
Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson and Vice Chair Wizenhut. Is there a second?
I'll second, but I did have a question. The amount that's shown on the resolution in our packet is $3,682,285.
Right.
The one that clerk just put up says 652 instead of 82.
So which is right?
I thought the county attorney gave the right
Is it possible to move to the next item? Give me just a moment to pull that for you.
Yep, let me skip to agenda item number 8. Apologies. We'll go back to 7.
Okay.
Agenda item number 8 is a resolution authorizing an amendment to the agreement with NavCare North Carolina LLC to provide medication-assisted treatment in the Forsyth County Detention Center until December 21st, 2026. This would increase the not-to-exceed amount to $121,120 for medication and related services provided under the MAT program for the period from July 1st, 2025 through December 21st, 2026.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bessie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion on item 8? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 9 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between Forsyth County and the Forsyth County Board of Elections for the provision of personnel administration services by the county for employees of the Board of Elections. This would formalize the fact that the county's Human Resources Department manages all personnel administration for the Board of Elections.
Motion by Commissioner Bessie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 10 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with DLT Solutions LLC for Oracle Cloud subscription services. This item awards and establishes a 1-year contract with 2 optional 1-year annual renewals with DLT Solutions at an annual cost not to exceed $785,033.
We have a motion.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 11 is a resolution authorizing an amendment to an agreement with North Point Chrysler Jeep, Inc., doing business as Carolina's Collision Center at North Point for accident-related auto repair, and a resolution authorizing an amendment to an agreement with Scarlett Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Pat's Body Shop and Towing for accident-related auto repairs. This would increase each contract by $75,000 for a total not-to-exceed amount for each of them of $125,000.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner Linville. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 12 is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of a purchase order to Capital Ford, Inc. for the purchase of 7 vehicles. This would purchase 7 Ford PIU hybrid vehicles for the Sheriff's Office patrol operations in a total amount not to exceed $312,048.24.
We have a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilson. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda items 13 through 26 are our appointments, and I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Wizenhunt.
Let me first say that I do not read nearly as fast as our manager does. The following applicants can be appointed by acclamation: Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, Kristen Daniel, Joan Kirk Graham, Amy Vernon, May Timmons Moore. Equalization and Review Board, Brittany Bailey, Daniel Cuppa, Richard Davis, Edward Hernandez, and Paul McGill. Experience in Self-Reliance, Brittany Bailey, Needy Gerald. Forsyth County Agriculture Advisory Board, Amison Apple, and La Zhang. Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission, Edward Bowden. Forsyth County Home and Community Care Grant Advisory Council, Andrea Graham and John Lee. Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee, Forsyth County, Jessica Spencer. Piedmont Triad Regional Development Corporation, Helen Furler. Jordan Google, Naomi Hall Byers, and Curtis Rogers. And these may be confirmed by acclamation.
All right. No motion required.
The following boards have remaining vacancies and did not receive applicants. Madam Clerk, please continue the appointments until a future meeting. Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, Animal Services Advisory Board, Community Appearance Commission, Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, Forsyth County Health and Human Services Board, Forsyth County Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Council, Nursing Home Advisory Committee, Forsyth County, Piedmont Triad Regional Development Corporation, and Piedmont Triad Workforce Development Board. Our next ones will require a vote. Let's see. Environmental Assistance and Protection. There will be 2 appointments. Both of them are open. Carter Berry, Dee Dee DeLong Johnson, David Farrell, John Hanna, Scott Herzog, Hugh Jenigan, Monet Jars, David Rodwell, Scott Shane, Joel Tobard, and Lee Shane. And you may vote for 2.
Mr. Chairman, Carter Berry received majority vote, but we have a tie between David Farrell and Scott Shang. We'll need a second vote.
Which 2 was the tie?
It is David Farrell and Scott Shang. Mr. Chairman, David Farrell received majority vote.
Our next vote is on the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Audit Advisory Committee, and I will turn that over to Commissioner Wilson.
Okay. I believe you can vote for 3.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to read the names of all the applicants, so you will know that you may still vote for three. Larry Audit, Leanne Barnett, Catherine Chambliss, Rudolph Click, Mary Cutler, Taylor Campbell, Alan Daniel, Darrell Farwell, Brittany Farner, Sharon Harrington, Robert Harris, C. Roger Hill, Eleanor Hooser, Kenneth Kerserka, Mary Laverdure, Andrew Levinson, Andy Mahaffey, Jacqueline Milam, Edward Hernandez Mercia, Shaliz Ramirez, Amanda Rourke, Antoinette Shepard, Jaleesa Smallwood, Tyler Sparks, Steve Wigton, and Mark Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, no one received majority vote. Would you like me to tell you the applicants who did receive votes?
Or it could be the number that got 3 votes, if there any got 3.
Amanda Ruark received 3 votes, and she is the only one. There were 2 applicants that received 2 votes, and that was Robert Harris and Andy Mahaffey.
Okay.
And there were several that received 1 vote.
So we need to vote for 3.
We need to vote for 3 folks again.
Do you mind putting the, do you have the?
I'll be happy to, yes.
You just wrote on it.
How many we need to vote for? What's the names again?
Same 3.
What were the names? 3. What's the other?
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I wanted to get their first names on there too. Amanda Ruark, Amanda Ruark and Amanda Harris received majority vote. We still need to do, oh, no, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let's start over. So we have Robert Harris received majority vote. Amanda Ruark received majority vote. And Andy Mahaffey received majority vote.
Good, thank you. We are now ready for discussion items.
We still have a few agenda items,
What-
Mr.
I'm
Chair.
sorry, what do we have? What else do we have?
We have tax reports, and I need to go back to number 7. So agenda items 27 and 28 are our refunds by the tax assessor and collector.
got it.
27 is a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor collector in the amount of $9,545.20, and 28 is in the amount of $11,482.57.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut. I'm happy to second that. Is there any discussion?
Second. Want a second, or did you
No,
already?
no,
have
go
one?
ahead. Well,
He said.
Well, I did too, but I'll add you to the second to Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda items 29 through 31 are our reports. 29 is the February financial report, 30 is the December human resources report, and 31 is the January human resources report.
Have a motion to accept reports.
So moved.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut, second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And I do need to go back to number 7. Agenda item number 7 is an amendment to the Forsyth County fiscal year 26 budget ordinance for the appropriation of funds to behavioral health services pharmacy budget, and a resolution authorizing an increase in the purchase of pharmaceuticals by the Forsyth County Pharmacy. I do apologize for the confusion. The resolution itself that is in your packet and online is correct. This would increase spending for the pharmacy inventory with Cardinal Health by $500,000, which increases the pharmacy budget to an amount not to exceed $3,682,285 for the remainder of this fiscal year, June 30th, 2026.
I move to approve.
We may have had a motion a second before, but we can start over. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
That is all of our agenda items, Mr. Chair.
Now, we're ready for Dr. Janet Spriggs from Forsyth Tech, give a quarterly report, and always pleased to see Dr. Paula Dibley here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Commissioners, for the opportunity again to speak to you about what is happening at your community college over the past quarter. Last time that I visited with you, I shared some wonderful information about the closing of our Vision 2025 strategic plan and the launching of our new Future Ready by Design Vision 2030 plan. At that time, I shared a lot of great information with you about the outcomes from the work that we had done at Forsyth Tech over the past 6 years to really increase student success outcomes and employment outcomes, and to, again, help make sure that we are preparing a qualified and ready workforce for the businesses and industries in our community. One thing that we didn't talk about that I do want to share with you this time is how much our enrollment has increased over the past 6-7 years. I think that's 7 years like that you see here on the chart since 2019. That, I think, is also indicative of that people are seeing Forsyth Tech as a first choice and not an only option. And we are blessed to have grown 29% overall in headcount since fall of 2019 in our curriculum programs alone. That means that we are now offering 31% increase in courses enrolled for those students. Since last spring, we are up 14% alone, just from spring of 25 to spring of 26, which will conclude in May, which represents over 1,000 students more with us this spring than we had last year. We're excited about that growth, managing through what it is like to serve 14% more students in a semester when you don't get paid for those students until the next year. But I'm proud to say that we have found ways around those struggles, and we have the classes that our students need to take, and we're moving forward. I also wanted to share that as a result of the great work of Vision 2025, we were pleased a couple of weeks ago to be invited to the Achieving the Dream Conference in Portland, Oregon, where we were recognized as a Leader College of Distinction. This photo is from 2 years ago when we were originally named a Leader College. Leader College of Distinction is the highest honor that the Achieving the Dream organization awards, and it is to recognize colleges that are seeing significant amounts of improvement in outcomes. This is not about enrollment. This is about the work that's actually being done to make sure that more students are coming to the college, but certainly once they're there, they are being successful. So we'll have to, I think many of you are in that photo. I don't think you can find yourself right now, but some of you are in that photo. Thank you for having been there. We'll let you know if we want to do a repeat of any kind to celebrate this distinction. We also have great news from our brand new athletics program. As you will recall, we launched Trailblazer Athletics this past year. We started with esports last spring and summer, and then we had women's volleyball in August timeframe, and followed by men's basketball, which launched in October. You've heard me talk a lot about the women's volleyball team and the success they had. Our men's team in their very first season had a 25-5 record overall, and they led Region 10, Division 2. We can't play in the tournament. I don't understand that rule, but we follow it. We could not play in the tournament, but we do have the overall title for the region for this year in our first year. We also had our coach, Lucas Hunter, who was named the Region 10 Coach of the Year, and one of our players, Denarian, we call him D1 because he wears number 1 and he scores around 30 or more points every game. He was named the Offensive Player of the Year for the division and also named the Freshman of the Year. So he's coming back next year, and that's the teaser to invite you to come see us when the season opens again in October at our West Campus gym. Additionally, we had the honor of being named the top cybersecurity associate degree program in the country. This is an honor that our IT team is very proud of, as they should be. For about 10 years, we have been, or a little over 10 years, we have been a center of academic excellence for cybersecurity education. We hire, many of our graduates are hired by the National Security Administration, and the Center of Academic Excellence is recognized by Department of Homeland Security and the National Security Administration. And to be the top degree program in the country is quite an honor. One of our faculty members, the program coordinator for this program, also received an award as the Faculty of the Year by the EC Council. So great things happening in programs at your community college. I'll shift now to a little bit about capital. You talked a lot about capital with your resolutions at the beginning of your meeting. My team has been meeting with the county staff, the county manager's finance team to talk about planning for long-term capital. So these are not things that I'm asking for at this moment. I know that you received some information, I think, from the county staff as you are now in the heart of your budget work for the coming year. And I think that you saw a lot of more detail than what you're seeing here. I just took advantage of having my report fall on this day right after you had gotten that information to share that we have basically there are 3 main categories of things that are included in those requests for long-term capital. The first that you see is for West Campus renovations. I mentioned our athletics program. We had some private dollars this year that allowed us to upfit the gym at West Campus. As you will recall, that's a middle school. It reminded me on the first day I walked in of my 6th grade gym. It's around that vintage, and I'm old, so it's been around for quite a while. But it looks wonderful. The gym is great. The building also houses our basic skills programming and a lot of other community programs and short-term program activities. And it needs some repair. It's about 74,650 square feet, and what we are asking for would allow us to do some work on the classroom space, the offices and common areas, as well as take care of some things around the exterior and the grounds. Second, we are planning for another building on our main campus to manage our growth. This would also allow us to expand athletics and our wellness education programs. This building would be about 26,000 square feet. It would be a multi-use facility, so it would be used for a lot of different things, including athletics, academics, student wellness, campus life, another gymnasium, classrooms, and support spaces, again, to accommodate our growth in programming as well as in students. And then finally, I think we've talked to you before about our continued work to expand public safety training. I'm very happy to say that this past year, and I think I shared this with you, but just as a reminder, our campus in King, our Northwest Forsyth Center, is where all of our public safety training, most of our public safety training is carried out. And we are proud to have grown that FTE to over 300 now. I think we're actually over 350, which means that we qualify now as a multi-campus. The State Board of Community Colleges has already approved that multi-campus designation. We are hopeful that the General Assembly will give us the multi-campus funding for that when they come back into session for the short session. I've talked to our legislators, and we believe that funding is going to happen. That's an additional roughly $688,000 for us to be able to manage expanded programming at our Northwest Forsyth Center. And one of the things that we desperately need to be able to do is to move our CDL truck driving program there. Right now, we are doing truck driving programming at the parking lot for Robert L. Strickland on our main campus. It's working fine, I think, for the program. But what happens when we have classes and events, and especially now that we have so many more students, we can't really continue to give that parking lot up. So we want to move CDL. We also want to expand our emergency driver training facilities, including adding a driving pad and some tracks that they need for teaching everyone in those programs how to safely maneuver those vehicles, and then some additional classroom space as well. So that's just a broad overview of the why and the big picture projects that you will see as you look at the information on capital projects requests. And then finally, the only capital project that we still have remaining that we are working on, and you're aware of this, in the 2016 bond projects, the way the projects were prioritized, the final project from the 2016 bonds was the Learning Commons building. We've completed all of the other projects now. Many of you were there for the opening of the renovated Strickland space and for the courtyard opening a few months ago. The Learning Commons building was planned prior to the bond in 2016, and the budget now will not build the building that was planned, essentially, and I think you are all aware of that. Post-COVID, prices escalated to a point that no one was anticipating, I don't believe. And so this diagram kind of tells you where we're at. We're working on finding a solution to the amount of money needed to continue this project. And I had some good news this week from conversations in Raleigh, so I'm hoping that we will soon be able to fill this gap. Essentially, we have $15.57 million left from the bond project. We have another $8 million that we have received from the state for what they call SCIF funding, and I apologize, I can never remember what SCIF stands for, but it's state capital, I think, state capital investment funding. Normally, the state does not give community colleges capital funding through general statute. That is responsibility of the service areas, but they do occasionally offer us funding, and a couple of years ago, we received around $14 million, a little over $14 million for capital funding. We've saved 8 of that to use for this project, and then we found another 2.53. Basically, what we did was looked at our SCIF money and the priorities we had set for it and determined that this was a higher priority, so we're moving that money to cover this. That leaves us, or gives us, $26.11 million available for the project, but the architects are telling us that it's going to cost $31.16 to build it. That is after we have done quite a bit of engineering work with them to try to reduce the cost. So we still have a gap of about $5 million. We are searching for funding for that. The long session did not yield a budget last year, and so we were not successful at getting any money from the state. I have talked with all of our legislators. We are not the only college or state agency in this situation. There are several other community colleges that have situations like this. It's a top priority for us because it also allows us to move our early and middle college to the same building on our campus, which gives us the opportunity not only to create a safer environment for our high school students that are on campus, but also to add additional seats for our early and middle college students who do amazingly well when they graduate with both their high school diploma and their college degree from us. So we are hoping that there's going to be some movement in the General Assembly in the short session, which begins, I think, April 21st. And we are asking for SCIF money from them or a special appropriation. I don't know, I have no idea how that's going to work. But we are pursuing that, and we have also been talking with county staff on ways that we might be able to figure out how to prioritize that, because it is our top priority to finish that building. With that, I believe that concludes all the items I wanted to share with you, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Dr. Spriggs? Thank you for your report, and congratulations on your cybersecurity #1 ranking in the country, as well as your recognition in out west here recently. So
Thank you so
a
much.
lot
We
of good
appreciate
news.
it. Yes.
You don't happen to know how many square feet are in that Learning Commons, do you?
The Learning Commons, I do not, but I have Scott with me. 45,000 square feet, right? Yes. I bring the people that have the answers.
Gotcha, thank you.
45,000, yes. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we're recognizing, we're actually getting an update and recognizing too, our All In for Our Schools update. I'd like to invite Latia Smith from the Winston-Salem Foundation president, and also Marnie Eisner, who is the executive chairman, that's the wrong chief, what is it?
Executive director.
That's it,
Yeah.
executive director of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools Educational Foundation. So thank you for being here, and thank you for all the good work that you've done.
I can do whatever. Thank you so much for having us here today. We really appreciate the opportunity to bring you up to speed where all the efforts are with the All In for Our Schools campaign. Oops, that's not how it advances. Oh, there we go. So this is, sorry, 1 second. I combined my slideshow with the one the superintendent gave at our dinner last week. Thank you so much again for having us. There has been so much that has happened in such a short amount of time. I know I don't need to convince all of you of this, but man, do we have an incredibly generous community here in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. We only announced the All In for Our Schools campaign back on September 17th. And in just 6 short months, we have raised over $9 million to meet emergency needs, which was our initial focus, as well as some of the debt that was accrued during the financial crisis during last school year. You can see on this timeline, there are some key highlights. Soon after we made the announcement about the campaign, you all stepped forward with your challenge, which really made a huge difference with foundations and businesses and individual donors to see that they could leverage their donation into a much bigger contribution in helping the school system find a way out of the crisis that it had found itself in. Over this time, we have been able to meet some of the goals that we set. The Education Foundation was specifically focused on helping the school system meet their supply need. When Kathy Moore arrived back last summer, she decided pretty quickly that they could not meet 100% of the budget that they normally distributed to the schools. And so the Education Foundation stepped up to raise the other half of those dollars. And to generous contributions from several individuals and businesses, we were able to deliver those checks the first week of January to help our schools alleviate all the different needs I'm sure you've heard about, whether it was paper or copier ink or dry erase boards and all sorts of things. I felt like Santa Claus that week. It was just such a good moment at that halfway point of the school year, which has been so tough on our educators, to be able to come in with some good news and just let them know how much they're loved by our community. Similarly, some of the initial needs we were trying to meet were around student success. And that fund is more than halfway to its goal. And then Bookmarks has worked closely with the media centers at the various schools to help make sure that they could replace the most beloved books that students take out every year and that really they look a lot worse for wear by the end of the school year. And they are also almost more than halfway to their goal as well.
And so while we began our philanthropic response with identifying direct ways to support students and teachers in the classroom, increasingly our community realized that in order to truly put our school system into a firm financial footing, we would have to address the debt. And so we opened up a fund in October so that we would be able to receive charitable contributions that could directly pay creditors that our school district owes. We have been able to raise to date over $6.6 million toward the debt, catalyzed significantly by the challenge that you offered back toward the end of the year, your willingness to forgive up to $5 million matched by all private donations received was really catalytic, and together helping to erase over $11.6 million of our school district's debt. Marnie and I have been so fortunate to represent the over 500 members of our community, from families to individuals to businesses and churches, people all across our community who share a commitment to our schools, and we're truly grateful for the partnership and the catalyst that you provided that really helped to get to this extraordinary fundraising goal.
So where we are right now, we were fortunate Chairman Martin was able to join us last week. Paul Fulton and John Burris hosted a dinner party for both current and potential donors to really help us get us across the finish line. We have a little more to go based on what the school system has been able to free up in terms of debt payments. And Paul Fulton announced that evening that even though he had already contributed a large amount, he was putting in more and was hoping that if you could dig deeper or if you hadn't given yet, that you would feel so motivated because we're really so close. And our public schools really are the bedrock of our community. And so we really want to support them as much as possible. We'll be working through May 1st to try and close that gap and hopefully get us to a point where what we're bringing in privately and what the school system has freed up monthly will clear us of all debt so that we can head into next school year with a new plan to really focus on how do we make our schools stronger and how do we better support our students and our educators. So we'll be looking to deploy the remaining funds. The Education Foundation, we actually exceeded our goal with the supply fund by over $100,000. And so I'll be working with Dr. Phipps on where that money can be best spent. And then the Education Foundation is looking forward to switching from emergency relief to long-term strategies, in particular strategies that support better outcomes for our students and really investing in our teachers and our principals, because for every classroom we change, it impacts a grade level, a school, and can really impact our whole system. So do y'all have any questions for us?
Any questions?
Yes, I do have a few questions. Thank you again for your presentation today and all of the work that you work alongside the commissioners as well. So thank you for that. But I do have a question relative to the current debt of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. Do you know what that current debt amount is?
I can tell you what the superintendent shared last week, and the total number is about $6.4 million, and that encompasses the amount they still owe ESS, the amount they owe to child nutrition, and then an amount that includes other funds, fund balance. I don't know what that last piece is, but.
Kind of the restricted funds part. There's about
Thank you.
about $2 million left that actually is not costing them anything. It's just going to show up on their audit. And
Right.
it can be restored with fund balance in the future. But they probably got, but by paying back the food service child nutrition loan, they're looking at probably about 3.5 to 4.
And we're certainly hoping, I don't know what our success will be, but we would love to see if in the community we can raise what's still owed to ESS. I don't know, because again, the community's been so generous up until this point, but that's really what our goal is right now, is the just over 2 million that's owed to ESS, if we can clear that through private contributions.
Certainly. And my last question was relative to the all-in-schools administrative costs. Are there costs?
No, so all of the dollars raised by the Education Foundation have gone directly to the school system. We have not collected any administrative fees on that. And I
And
think the
once-
same for you, correct?
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
100% true. Certainly, there have been costs,
Oh,
but we
yes.
have assumed them.
Absorb the
Yes.
cost. Okay, that's what I needed to confirm.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right,
All money raised has gone where it's needed most.
sounds perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, both of you, for being here today to give us that update. Thank you. All righty, Chris Murphy, you've been here for a little while this morning and so forth. He actually has 3 zoning items to brief with us today, none of which are data centers.
Correct, for now. Yeah, whenever she was trying to pull up the PowerPoint, she had pulled up my PowerPoint, so I just asked her if she wanted to go ahead and do those too. She didn't, so. The first case, first of all, good afternoon. I was here this morning, but I didn't get the chance to address you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Board of County Commissioners. The first case is F-1664, and this is a petition for Ace Acres LLC. It's a 43-acre piece of property located on the east of the intersection of Hampton Road and Bent Ridge Lane, down in the southwestern portion of the county. The request is to rezone for a special use district rezoning from existing RS9 zoning to RS20S for a few uses, most of the uses which are already allowed in RS9, but they are requesting a riding stable and the use special event center. This is the subject property shown on the countywide growth management area plan map. It is located right on the county line. This is located in GMA 3, suburban neighborhoods. I did mention this is on a 43-acre piece of property, but the property owner owns several hundred acres, some of which, the majority of which is actually in northern Davison County, but this is obviously within Forsyth County, which is why it is before you. This is the subject property highlighted in yellow, again, on the east side of Hampton Road there across from Bent Ridge Lane. And the county line is the dark red line at the bottom of the screen. So on the south side of that line, you are in northern Davison County. Subject property outlined in yellow. This is a primarily agricultural property. It was, I believe, a riding stable back in time. It's been there since the late 70s, which predated the current UDO, which does not allow riding stables in RS9, but it was a legally non-conforming use. It is, again, agricultural in nature with fields and riding rinks, et cetera, but it also has some other structures on the property as well. This is the area plan map. It is located within the Clemens Compass Plan, but that was not adopted by the commissioners, so it has no recommendation as far as what the commissioners have adopted, but I did include that just because it was located in their plan. We're going to rectify that with area plans going forward. There won't be any areas in the county that does not have a county commissioner recommendation from an adopted plan. Some images. This is looking south along Hampton Road. The subject property is to the left. Of course, you see the zoning sign there. This is looking north along Hampton Road. The subject property is to the right. This is looking into the subject property at the main building. This is where I believe the main special events would take place. This is a former riding stable. The other buildings that will be used as part of this project are some existing homes. This is looking at buildings in the northwestern portion of the subject property. This is one of those existing homes in the background behind those other buildings, I do believe. These are the buildings that will be used as part of the event center. The main building there in the middle was where the events will mainly be held. The building in the northwest corner, which is an existing house, I believe that's where bridal parties will get ready, and the building that is sort of in the central eastern portion of the site. But the furthest east yellow block is where groomsmen would get, where the grooms and the groomsmen would get ready for weddings and those kind of things. But the building with the largest rectangle around it is where the special event center events themselves would take place. In summary, this request would preserve rural character and open space on a parcel outside the serviceable land area and within a protected watershed. The request furthers the Forward 2045 goal of supporting the diversity of land uses where feasible. And this request would allow what we would consider a low-intensity commercial use as a transition between rural and suburban development. Again, you're looking at a 43-acre piece of property with the majority of the event center being several hundred feet away from neighbors. This was heard by the planning board at their February 12th, 2026 public hearing. There was one speaker in opposition, and that opposition primarily was concerned with noise associated with a special event center. Following the public hearing, the planning board did vote unanimously to recommend approval. At the hearing itself, the petitioners, this is something that was done without the proper approval, so they're going through the process to get the proper approvals. The petitioner did acknowledge that the building in and of itself needs some modifications to it as far as insulation and those kind of things to address noise. So hopefully whenever they come before you in a few weeks, they will be able to address that as far as what they plan on doing to the interior of the building to address those noise concerns. With that, I stand ready to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chris?
How much residential development in the area you indicated several hundred feet away? You said housing.
If you go back to this image, probably shows it best. This is the subject property outlined in black. There are a few houses around here. Of course, the property owner's house is here. I believe the majority of the folks that have been complaining live in this development, which is the Bent Ridge Lane, which is directly across the street from this event center. There are a couple houses that are close to Hampton Road, but on the west side of Hampton.
Okay.
Hampton Road continues on into Davidson County, don't it?
It does. Actually, yeah, this is Hampton Road here, and it continues on into Davidson County. This is the Davidson County line, so it continues and ties back into maybe Circle Road. I can't remember the name of the road it ties back into, but it does tie into a road that then ties into Highway 150 south in Davidson County.
Go back to what you said first. I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention. I was paying attention, but must have been to the picture. Did you say that part or all of the property was asking for the rezone?
The portion in Forsyth County, this is the 43 acres that is located within Forsyth County. The whole 43 acres is being petitioned to be rezoned from RS9 to RS20S. And the RS20 is the least intense zoning district that allows the use event center. Of course, they have RS9 at this point. They're going from RS9 up a couple classifications to RS20. So they're asking for RS20S for the entire 43 acres. But the property owner owns several hundred acres, but the remainder of that is in Davidson County.
Well, is the S part, what does it have specifically to do with?
Well, it ties this to the plan that is submitted, so they would be tied to this site plan that's before you that shows the buildings that would be used for the event center. They couldn't do anything beyond this as far as what is shown on the plan, and they're limiting the uses to residential building, multifamily, agricultural production, crops, livestock, planned residential development, and then riding stable and event center. So it's the riding stable and the event center are really the only two uses that aren't currently allowed in their existing RS9.
And you say planned residential development also.
Well, they've asked for that, but if they wanted to do that, they would have to come through and show that they were going to do a PRD. They're just asking for uses that would be, if for some reason, let's say 10 years from now, the event center is closed and someone wants to buy it and do a PRD, they wouldn't have to rezone it again, but they would have to bring you another site plan.
Is the PRD what allows for, small, I don't know whether,
Clustering,
what?
smaller lots in exchange for common open space?
Yes.
Yes. And if you have concerns about that, I'm sure they would not be opposed to removing it, but you would need to ask the petition at the public hearing. I mean, I can't speak for them, but they have no plans at this point to do a PRD. Oftentimes, we ask folks to go ahead and ask for uses that are allowed in the existing zoning district. So for like RS9, you can already do a PRD. We a lot of times encourage folks to ask for additional uses that they might want to do if for some reason the use they're trying to do falls through.
Sometimes, when property's being, requested for zone and they're asking for, not particularly this, any of them, PRD, don't that happen sometime because, all of the topo on property don't allow it to, the topo's not good for the houses, so they need to, or dwellings, so they need to cluster them in some places to, but that, don't sewer act have to come involved before that can be done?
Not necessarily, but to answer the first question, yes, a lot of times topo would be a reason why you would want to do a PRD because it would allow you to get your lot yield and stay out of the areas that you shouldn't be developing in anyway. You know, you can do a PRD without sewer, but normally you would have to have a large septic field and do common septic areas because you couldn't do them on the individual lots.
If sewer wasn't available, you'd have to have septic fields to do that.
Correct.
What's the occupancy of that main barn? How many people could you put in there?
I don't know.
It seems to me.
I mean, the total square footage has to be under 20,000 square feet for a special event center. They're at 19,200 or something like that, and that's with the 3 buildings combined. I would imagine that the 2 smaller buildings probably have a total of 4,000 feet in them, so that building in and of itself is probably 15,000.
That's
I
big.
think it says 15,500. You know, it depends. Occupancy on those kind of things is determined by the type of seating that you have. If you have tables and chairs, it's based on the number of table chairs. If you don't have fixed seating, it's based on square footage. But I mean, obviously, there are going to be limitations from what they can serve from a parking standpoint as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is parking adequate? And is it going to create traffic on Hampton Road?
It meets the requirements for the youth special event center. They have the requisite parking shown. They also have, if you look, they have large areas of, went the wrong way. They have large areas of drives and other items that they could also do some informal parking on the interior of their site because they have large roads throughout this entire thing. This was originally built as a riding stable back in the 70s. I believe that the Davis family owned it for a number of years. I believe Derek Davis actually had his private car collection stored out here for a number of years. The current property owner bought it from the Davis family in the late 19s, early 20s of 2019, 2020, 2021, sometime in that time frame. But, you know, I can certainly go back and talk to our chief building official and get if we have any information on the building, what the actual occupancy would be. But, you know, like I said, it's going to be somewhat limiting based on what you can park and what you can reasonably accommodate at a wedding.
Got it.
Well, generally, I guess, I don't know, were there anything general or not? Whenever you have zoning that's compatible with what the plan is, and it joins just say housing in particular of some kind, and it joins public road, has right of way to the public road, the calculations that y'all use, not particular this one, this is because we did something about a year or so ago, and traffic ultimately came into the conversation, and I'm not sure, it had an easement to it, that's what it did, it had an easement to it.
Probably.
That's not part of this, it's just an example that I was trying to make.
In this context, they have frontage onto Hampton Road, so they have actually two driveways that enter and exit onto Hampton Road for this project.
So the traffic would not necessarily be a problem.
I don't believe so. I mean, again, obviously, if you have an event, that's a big event. I mean, I can't say you wouldn't have a traffic problem, but generally speaking, a normal event would probably not cause a traffic issue out here. The Hampton Road in and of itself has ample capacity for trips, and the project itself has plenty of room to park cars. Now, obviously, if you had some event that I'm not sitting here imagining, it could be a problem, but most normal events should not cause a traffic issue out here. And again, the folks that spoke at the public hearing before the planning board didn't really mention traffic as a concern as much as it was noise.
Any other questions for Chris? Thank you.
The next item is one that you have seen before. And this is F-1665, and this was Everett Road Self-Storage LLC, which was approved from RS9 to GBS back 2.5–3 years ago, maybe. This is a 4.9 acre piece of property located on the west side of Everett Road, south of West Clemensville Road and north of Evans Road. This is a subject property shown on the Forward 2045 Growth Management Plan map. It's in GMA 3 suburban neighborhoods. This is the piece of property highlighted in yellow, and like I said, it was rezoned by the commissioners a couple years ago from RS9 to GBS. It's across the road from an existing GBS that was zoned probably 7 years ago, and it hasn't become a storage facility either. This is the aerial image. The property on the east side that is on GBS, they have done a little bit of work. They've put in a buffer yard, a street yard and a driveway, but they've never actually gone and put the storage units in. On the west side, I believe they determined whenever they were doing their due diligence after they had got it rezoned that storage wasn't going to work here, so now they're wanting to put it back from GBS back to the general use RS9. The area plan recommends intermediate density attached product, low density attached product, that's 0 to 8 units per acre. It's my understanding in the area there is some rock, so I'm not sure exactly that multifamily is going to work here, so they're just wanting to put it back as RS9, what it was prior to the rezoning. Here is an image looking west along Everett. The subject property is to the right. It says west, it's probably more southwest. This is looking east, northeast along Everett Road. The subject property is to the left. You see the zoning sign there. And this is looking into the subject property from Everett Road. And this is looking east from the subject property across Everett Road. I believe that may be the street yard that they tried to put in for what's across the street. Again, it's never developed. The request is consistent with the recommendation of the Southwest Suburban Area Plan update to develop the site at a residential density of 0 to 8 units per acre. Of course, it said multifamily attached, but this is single family, but again, it still does meet that density threshold. The request supports the goal of Forward 2045 to increase the number of housing units and provide greater housing choice near retail nodes. This was heard by the planning board at the February meeting. There were no speakers in opposition, and then following that public hearing, they did recommend approval. With that, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Is that, in that general area and specifically right there too, as far as practical use of it, for say like housing, don't a lot of that land area right in there have rock all over it?
It does. That industrial property, the purple that's further to the west, is actually owned by one of, I'm not sure if it's Martin Marietta, whether it is Vulcan, but they actually own a potential quarry there for the future. It's went through an approval process a long time ago, but yes, there is rock in that area.
Well, it could be, developers had the money, and many of them do, to deal with rock. If you have to have water and probably sewer, and it's there, isn't it? Because it goes down to the school.
You could make it work, but it would cost. I mean, yes, I mean, obviously, money can overcome anything, but
Rock is all over the area out there because you can tell when you drive by somewhere and there's not any buildings around in a place that's not that far away from Winston, you know it's something that's not right.
correct.
And that's what it is, it's rock.
Yeah. But you go a little bit further south of here, and there's a lot of homes, and you've got the school, et cetera, so there's something right in this area that doesn't lend itself.
Other questions? We're ready for the third one.
All right, and the final item to brief is petition, it's F-1666. This is a petition of Eisenhower Homes LLC to rezone 13.35 acres located along the west side of Chickasha Drive, south of Yakinville Road, and north of Peaceful Glen Drive. And it's to rezone the property from AG to RS40. This is a subject property shown on the Forward 2045 Growth Management Area Plan map. It is located within GMA 3, and it's just north of the town of Louisville limits there along Chickasha. This is the subject property shown on the vicinity map in yellow. Again, this is Chickasha, and this is a residential development within the town of Louisville. This is a subject property on the aerial imagery. Again, it was used for agricultural purposes in the past. They're requesting to rezone from AG to RS40. There's other AG in the area, and again, directly to the south is RS20. This is subject property shown on the West Suburban Area Plan Update map. It does recommend single-family residential 0 to 8 units per acre. Obviously, going from AG to RS40, it still fits within that. The RS40 and the AG have the same density requirements. It's one lot for every 40,000 square feet of lot area. And the difference in AG and RS40 is lot width. In AG, you have to have 150 feet wide lots. In RS40, you can have 100-foot wide lots. But again, the overall size of the lot is the same for the density calculation. You've got to have a 40,000 square foot lot.
Was there a lake, go back to that picture, was there a lake somewhere close to that?
To the west, on another piece of
Not on the
property.
same property though.
Yeah, it's on a different property owner's property. This is looking west into the subject property, shown from Chickasha Drive. This is looking east from the subject property across Chickasha, looking east from the subject property. This is looking south on Chickasha Drive. The subject property is to the right, and you see some of the residential development there in the background. And this is looking north on Chickasha Drive, and the subject property is on the left. The request is consistent with the recommendations of both Forward 2045 and the West Suburban Area Plan Update. The proposed RS40 zoning district promotes large lots, single-family residential character that exists in the surrounding area. Chickasha Drive has ample capacity to handle trips generated by any use allowed in RS40 zoning. And as I did mention, a reason to go from AG to RS40 is for narrower lots going from 150 down to 100 feet in width. This was heard by the Planning Board at their February 12th, 2026 public hearing. There was one speaker in opposition, and that speaker was primarily concerned with a site plan issue that can't be considered as part of the rezoning. I think he had seen a sketch plan that showed a private access easement and a couple lots beside of his house, on the back side of his house. They can do that today under existing AG zoning. So that's not anything that can be considered by the planning board or anything that can be considered by this body. You have to consider the merits of AG versus RS40, not potential site plan issues, because there's no site plan tied to this. As a result, following the public hearing, the planning board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this request. As part of the public hearing, after the public hearing was over, we did encourage the developer to sit down with that property owner to see if they could come to some type of an agreement. I'm not sure if they have done that yet, but again, that's not anything that would be binding by the planning board or by the elected body if this were rezoned. But that was the one piece of opposition. But again, it wasn't germane to the actual rezoning. It was more of a future site plan and development issue. With that, I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have.
In a place like this, would a reason be that narrowing the lots, they can have the driveway to every house up on the roadway and not have a street?
I don't know if they plan on doing any of this as a minor subdivision and cutting lots off on the road. They very well could. But again, we haven't seen a site plan ourselves.
Okay. Well, that is sometimes a reason for.
Yeah, definitely it can be, and obviously it cuts down on development costs, but it also potentially reduces your development yield if you can't get all the lots within that prescribed width.
Well, can I ask the question about, Mr. Attorney, can you give us just a little more information about the easement as to what you?
I mean, again, we haven't seen it, so,
I mean, what is the easement not on? I've just, when easement comes into play, I'd like to know the information. Is the easement on part of this property, on the edge of it somewhere?
Again, there is no existing easement. It's my understanding that the person who was opposed had been somewhere or had spoken maybe to the developer, and the developer had shown him a sketch of what they were going to do. And he lived in, if you look on your screen, he lived in one of these 2 or 3 houses right here. I'm not sure which one. And they were showing some type of easement that went down this property line that would serve a couple of different lots. But again, there is no site plan associated with this project, so it can't be considered as part of the rezoning request. They're asking for a general use rezoning from AG to RS40, so the rezoning itself has to be decided on its own merits, not what might happen. Because Eisenhower owns this now, but they could sell it to Joe Citizen tomorrow and he could do something else with it.
Well, that's just a legal matter, and looks like to me, whatever, if it was something anywhere and you own a property in question and you want to put some kind of easement on it somewhere, unless it's something really unusual, you can do that.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay, we're ready for the next one.
That's all for me.
Oh, that's it. Oh, we're ready for we have one discussion item left over from this morning. MWBE discussion that we had to curtail.
Okay, good afternoon, or I was supposed to give this at 10 o'clock, so good morning. See if I can find my presentation. I don't see it. Before I start, since Chris was here and just spoke with us, I just wanted to remind you all, or you may not know this, there is an item that will be coming before you in the future, F-1667. It's under the name of Tucker. It is LCID landfill. I believe they've been here before in the past. They'll be coming back for a special use permit. I'm not here to talk about that. I haven't even looked at the item. I just wanted to remind you that that is different. It's not a rezoning. And so I would ask you please not to speak with anybody. That's handled as a quasi-judicial matter. So it's like you're the judge and jury. And so it's different from all the rezonings that Chris was talking about, which are legislative matters, and you can speak with people on those. So I just wanted to give you that reminder. Okay, so I was asked a couple months ago to speak about MWBE efforts and what is allowed for the county to do, what is legal to do. And of course, there are different questions about what is legal and what is wise or what you want to do. And this is an area of law which is changing quite rapidly, and there are a lot of questions about it. So I may not be able to give you all of the answers, but I thought I'd walk through what it is. So what is MWBE? So I may use MWBE. There are a lot of other terms which are also used. MWBE, as you know, is Minority and Women Business Enterprises. Other terms that are used, HUB, H-U-B, historically underutilized businesses, or in the statutes, many times it just generically refers to minority businesses. Those are all really the same thing, but the different terms are used. It's important to note that when we talk about goals, that's not the same thing as a quota. So a goal is aspirational, it's something you may try to accomplish, but it's not a requirement. So whenever we say on a construction project there was a 10% MWBE goal, that is something we would like to happen, or maybe 12% or 15%, but we can't require 10% to be minority business contracts for that. And I know you all know this, but this is kind of a reminder of what we're doing. And of course, the purpose of a goal is to provide opportunities to businesses to bid on projects for which, in the past, they may not have been able to bid for whatever reasons, discrimination or whatever happened in the past. So the history of Forsyth County MWBE, I went back a ways on this. Again, I always say I can never go back as far as Commissioner Linville, so he may want to pipe in here, but I went back as far as 1990. That is when Forsyth County adopted a minority business goal of 10% for building projects over $100,000. It was done pursuant to a requirement in the statutes, Chapter 143. So it required all bidders to show evidence of good faith efforts, such as pre-bid meetings, notice to minority firms, breaking down work into economically feasible units, and access to specifications and plans. So that was 1990. In 2001, the General Assembly revisited the statute 143-128.2. That's the one that is still in place today, and they were very specific about what could and could not be done. And so what it says is that local governments, this of course applies to cities as well as counties, may use an MWBE goal for building projects using state funding if the goal was established before December 1st, 2001. So if you already had a goal, you could keep doing that goal. The default goal for state projects was 10%, and it said the counties may set other goals for non-state funded building projects. What we did what this board did by a March 25th, 2002 resolution is you reaffirmed your 10% goal, which had been set in 1990, and it was for all building projects, and that is still the goal we have today. So when do MWBE requirements apply? So they apply to building projects. That's the way it's defined. In the statute, what that really means is construction or repair of buildings. Of those, subset, generally they apply for building projects over $300,000, but if it's a state-funded project through a state appropriation or a grant, it kicks in at $100,000.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So, does this MWBE requirement application preclude a county from using MWBE for non-building projects? So I guess the question, could we use MWBE aspirational goals for non-building projects if we wanted to, or does the state law prevent that?
I'll get to that
Okay.
in my presentation. The short answer is it's up in the air, but, so what is a minority business? A minority business is one that is 51% controlled by a minority or 51% controlled by socially or economically disadvantaged individuals. That's defined by federal regulation. So who is a minority? These, maybe they seem obvious, but they're actually harder than you might think. So it's a U.S. citizen or permanent resident who is either one of these categories listed here: Black, Hispanic, regardless of race, Asian American, which interestingly enough in the statute it says from the Far East, Southeast Asia, or Asia, Indian subcontinents. I don't know why they say Asia in there if they list all the other things, but anyhow, it's an Asian American or American Indian or female. So you can see that would cover obviously more than 50% of the population.
And I was going to say, relative to the female part, so that could include all female, no matter what.
All females. All
Ethnicity is. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So who is a socially or economically disadvantaged individual? That would include all those other people we've already listed, and the definition says individuals who can prove social or economic disadvantage by preponderance of evidence. Basically, it would involve somebody who has a disability or some reason they can't typically participate in mainstream society. So the statute gives the county obligations, and those are things that we're doing. First is an outreach plan, which is identifying and reaching out to minority firms in applicable trades. That's done through state and local MWBE lists that City County Purchasing develops and any kind of educational events that they hold. Also pre-bid conferences, which we typically hold. And if a minority business has let City County Purchasing know, then there's an obligation to notify them at least 10 days prior to bid opening of a bidding opportunity. So when somebody submits a bid, and again, we're talking about generally building projects over $300,000. When somebody submits a bid, the bidder is required to either meet the goal, the 10% goal of minority subcontractor participation, or document their good faith efforts in seeking to meet that goal. So good faith is described as scoring 50 points on 10 categories, each of which must count for at least 10 points. So, and that's set by the Secretary and the Department of Administration. So what are the 10 categories? They are the components of good faith. And obviously it goes into a little bit more detail than this, but first one is contact minority businesses in the applicable trade. Second is make specifications and plans available. The third is to break down work into economically feasible units. So that could be like putting out a dumpster contract separately or something like that, but splitting up the work. 4 is working with minority trade or business groups identified by the North Carolina Hub Office. 5 is attending the pre-bid meeting. 6 is providing assistance to the minority subcontractor with bonding or insurance. 7 is negotiating in good faith with minority businesses. 8 is provide assistance with equipment, bidding, joint pay. 9 is negotiate joint venture or partnership agreements, and 10 is to provide a quick pay agreement. So those are the 10 categories, and the standard is you need to score at least 50 points to show that you have exercised good faith. So again, the bidder is either going to say, yes, I have a 13% or whatever the number is, I've exceeded the goal with my subcontractors. If they do, that's it, they're fine. If they're the low bidder, they go forward. Or they can show they can go down that checklist and say, I did 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I scored 75 points, and so that's good faith. So we open up the bids, we look at the bids, the purchasing folks do, and they see who's the low bidder. And so then they look at, have they met the MWBE goal? So if they meet the goal, they're done, it'll be recommended to you, the board, and you can approve it or not. If they don't meet the goal, then the county has a MWBE committee, and they meet and they score. They go through the checklist, and purchasing, not only collects this affidavit, but they collect the information to support that. So it'll be lists of people we contacted, emails, things like that. Did they actually show up at the pre-bid meeting, things like that. And so the members of the committee will each separately score each category and add them up. And so if they add up to 42, average them all together, it averages out to 42. Well, that's not meeting, that's under 50. And so then they will go to purchasing and say, who is the next lowest bidder, and did they meet good faith efforts or minority participation?
Just a quick question.
Sure.
The county MWBE committee, that is not the same as the MWBE committee that serves through the city. It's sort of like citizens are on that committee. That's the same? It's not? Okay, yeah, because that could be confusing.
So the committee consists of members from the manager's office, the attorney's office, general services, and city-county purchasing.
Okay.
So that's the county committee. And so they meet, they score, they average the scores, and if it's over 50, they'll bring it to you. If it's under 50, they go to the next lowest bid. So there's some, beyond just what I mentioned, the formal bidding for construction projects, there are a couple other requirements in statute about minority firms. One of them is under the informal bidding statute. So again, generally over 300,000, that kicks in the formal MWBE. But there's under 300,000, there's still a requirement under the statute 143-131B, which says the county must solicit minority business participation. So there are really no good faith efforts, but they have to make it, the county has to make it available. They have to notify applicable minority firms for those informal bids on building projects. For qualification-based contracts, and those are the architectural, engineering, surveying, CM at risk, pursuant to 143-64.31, the county must notify minority firms of the opportunity to submit qualifications. So when we're seeking an architect, for example, we send those out to minority firms as well.
May I ask a question in terms of how the submission is made to them? Is it a listing that you have via email, or is it a notification in the newspaper? What?
So it is put on the city purchasing website. I think Darren's here, I see him. And I don't know if do y'all reach out directly sometimes by email? Okay.
You said sometimes. Why is it sometimes? Yeah, why is it sometimes directly?
Yeah, you can come up here.
Purchasing manager. Primarily, it's the responsibility of the general contractor. So we do reach out directly to minorities to let them know, but it's going to be the responsibility of the prime and that, the minority contractors to link up to get, included on the bid. So we can do the reach out, but what really matters is getting the primes and the minorities together, which is why we do things like the pre-bid conference and we connect them. We've had 3 or 4 projects recently that had MWB goals, and I asked my folks at the city, can you give me some trade lists for minority companies? And then I distributed those to the prime bidders. to reach out to them directly, because we're trying to get them together so that they'll use them on the bid.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, the question has arisen, can the county expand its minority efforts? And of course, as a good lawyer, I'll say it depends. So in certain circumstances, yes, we can. So notification of county bidding opportunities, certainly we can do as much notification as you want. We can publicize it as much as you want through the county website. And we're already doing a lot of this, county website, social media, targeted media, educational outreach. And I'll go into this a little bit later, but obviously, and purchasing is already doing this, but we could redouble our efforts on development of minority business lists for trade, services, and goods. As I've said, the focus of the statutes is on building projects. So they're generally very good lists for building trades. But because, people know that they're MWBE goals, so that's easier, but for services, those lists aren't necessarily well developed. Can we expand? No, for other situations. The main barriers are preemption by state law, and also constitutional law, federal law, and executive orders, federal executive orders. I'll go into that a little bit. Preemption. So, as you know, the county's powers come from the General Assembly. There's some other states that are home rule states where local government is free to do a lot. We are not a home rule state, so we can't do something unless we're given that authority. So this is some legalese, the next paragraph here, but it's the definition basically of preemption, and that's where the state has enacted a specific statute showing a legislative intent to provide a complete and integrated regulatory scheme to the exclusion of local regulation. A local government is preempted from pursuing any further regulation. That's a mouthful. And it can be very fact specific and sometimes hard to predict how that will be determined by a court. But generally, where a statute is specific about regulation of an area of the law, that means a state has, sometimes they say, occupied the field, and local government can't do anything beyond that. With regard to construction contracts, as I've said, the state law is very specific, included the date before which the county must enact a goal for project involving state funds. That was December 1st, 2001, and so we can't change that goal now. The other statutes which dealt with informal bidding or qualification-based contracts, they only allowed or talked about notification, not setting goals. So I conferred with Professor Christy Kokoro of the School of Government, and she said, it's hard to say because we haven't had cases on these lately, and the law seems to be changing. But she thought that state law would probably preempt the county from introducing MWBE goals for projects other than construction. However, even if we were to introduce new goals, if we just said it would be great to have 10% for everything, we couldn't really enforce the requirements for bidders to make good faith efforts. So the goals wouldn't really have any teeth if we did have a goal for that. Now, other jurisdictions have pursued this. They've commissioned disparity studies to try to increase their MWBE goals. They tend to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, these disparity studies. And I would think in this day and age, they would face a lot of legal challenges. And they couldn't involve the expenditure of state funds, for those building contracts because that would seem to violate the statute I've been talking about. And they would be quite restricted if we're dealing with using federal funds. So that gets us into the next part, which is federal issues with this. So equal protection under the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. We can't set aside a certain percentage of work based on race or gender. And we can't require there to be a minority bidder for each project or purchase. Now remember, when we're talking about MWBE goals, the focus was on making it available. It wasn't on requiring there to be minority bidders. So that would impermissibly, the requirement that you have to have a minority bidder for each project would impermissibly favor one class over another. And I'll just quickly reference a case that came out in 2023. It was two cases that the Supreme Court put together into one, Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard and UNC. I'm sure you've all heard of that. They struck down the 45-year precedent, the Bakke case from 1978, which allowed affirmative action in higher education, and then a more recent case than that. And so this case forbade using race as a factor in college admissions. The justification was equal protection. Now, that case obviously didn't directly involve MWBE goals, but it does highlight that the Supreme Court won't allow race-based preferences. And of course, as you know, it's emboldened opponents of DEI programs, diversity, equity, inclusion. So whether or not you agree with that case or not, it's certainly changed the lay of the land in terms of using race as a factor.
Before you go to the next slide, I did want to just quickly maybe address the case that the quota piece, I guess, is what I wanted to try and address. And I think in talking to citizens, especially that I represent in District A, primarily African Americans, I think the intentional feedback is not about we want contracts because we're Black or because we're Hispanic, but I think just as Commissioner Linville's neighbor said, if I pay taxes, then what do I get with my taxes? And so thank God the EMS service got there, and that citizen is then, satisfied with, I'm paying into the system and I just want access and services because I'm a tax-paying citizen. So I think that just in response to the quota piece, and I'm not saying that you were trying to insinuate otherwise, I think you're just letting us be aware that you don't want to get into the quota rule, but in talking with citizens in all fairness, there has not been a thought where we should get contracts because we are one race or the other. It's we pay taxes here and we would like appropriate consideration for contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not trying to say any of these cases were right or wrong. I'm just kind of giving you the lay of the land, but I understand exactly what you're saying. So Executive Order 14173, that dealt with a lot of DEI activities, and so it was called Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity. So it targeted DEI activities by recipients of federal funds. The guidance on it was very far-ranging beyond DEI, so it kind of lays a roadmap of where the federal government might be going. And one of the things it said in there, it warned against using a contract selection process favoring minority or women-owned businesses. So I'm not saying that we've ever done that, but it's showing that that's something the federal government's going to be looking at. And beyond that, I know you've heard this before, but the U.S. Department of Transportation has forbade the use of MWBE goals in any of their grants. And while you may not think we care that much about U.S. DOT, those are the funds that come to North Carolina DOT and then come to our airport. And so for all airport projects that have that federal funding, even though it came through the state has said, given us the same guidance. They've said, you can't use MWBE on any construction projects at the airport if there's any federal money involved. And so we've had to stop doing that. So again, that's kind of a sign of the times of where the federal government may be doing. That may be That may be challenged in court, it may be overturned, but that's where we are now.
In fact, if I may, I wanted to check and see whether there had been any challenges to that executive order in the works. A number of this administration's executive orders have been blocked or overturned by court order.
There have certainly been challenges. I don't think it's been overturned. And again, it doesn't directly affect the MWBE discussion, although the guidance seems to. There's been an effort at the state level for DEI, and it failed by one vote. And so they kept talking about the House coming back to overturn it, but they haven't done it. I mean, to overturn the veto. So I'm not aware that that's been struck down, the executive order.
In fairness, I should say that the previous administration, too, was frequently challenged in its executive orders.
Definitely.
And frequently blocked by the courts.
Well, I mean, we don't need a civics lesson. I mean, you could probably give me a civics lesson, but when you do things by executive order, you're kind of avoiding, the way the Constitution was set up. But like you say, both sides have done that. So what is possible what more could we do? And when I say possible, I mean, it's something that could be done. Whether you want to do it or not, I don't know. So again, there's nothing prohibiting beefed up, expanded outreach, notification, and tracking of MWBE businesses for all county contracts above a certain amount. That's something that would be legal to whatever efforts we want to do for that. I will point out there's some practical challenges for this. And one, and I've listed them here, one, it would be time consuming to reach out to MWBE firms for every purchase, and it would slow down purchase orders and county services. There was a proposal, I think, that any contract over $10,000, that's a lot of contracts. That is a lot of contracts. And, one of the reasons the goals were stated for construction is that there are small firms that do that work, and so it's easier to do it in that realm. So that goes into number two. At present, there are limited lists of MWBE firms in the services area. So it could be difficult initially to find bidders. We could build up the list. But one of the problems is, and this goes into goods a lot too, think about what is the racial gender ownership of a corporation. So if it's a mom and pop thing, if I set up an LLC, then I'm white, I'm not a minority, so I wouldn't qualify. But I mean, is Microsoft? We don't know who owns Microsoft. It's owned by, their CEO is an Indian American. He's a minority. But I don't know who owns 51% of Microsoft stock. You just approved an increase in the purchase of pharmaceuticals, $3.6 million. I don't know if there is. Cardinal Health, the people who sell that are these huge corporations. And so if we set a goal for 10% of goods to be MWBE, well, then you've got, like, when you're buying cars, you're buying drugs, you're buying things like that, it would be difficult to ever meet that goal. So that's a practical difficulty. And then the third one is again kind of reiterating what number one said, that even if we beefed up purchasing and finance with extra staff to do this work, it would require a lot more of the department's staff time to seek out additional bidders. And that the departments have been working really hard, and I've been working with them on bidding and the new procurement policy. The new procurement policy goes far beyond legal requirements, but it's produced some great results in terms of getting bids, and staff has been really good about that. But this would be a whole different level of time required to do that.
Before you go to the next slide,
Sure.
and I think that I wanted to kind of highlight what Denisha Harris said about the points that you made as it relates to some of the challenges with expanding some of our efforts, in that that the smaller amounts that's awarded would potentially open up the pipeline for small or minority businesses to go into the larger contracts. So I think, and she listed a couple of other kind of advantages. I think that you're gonna have some challenges and you're gonna have some advantages, and then we can weigh whether there is cost advantage based on, and I'll let you finish, based on at least the economic impact study that was done in 2025, October, by BJM Solutions that went out throughout the state and the hub office. But I did just want to highlight that Denisha Harris, who is now the president of, it's a coalition of MWBE interests in the state that, you know, talk about those smaller amount contracts really do tend to show how counties are increasing access for those minority businesses, which include all of those categories. But thank you.
Yeah, and this slide is not legal, so you don't have to agree with any of it. So I'm just trying to point out some practical issues that may arise. I mean, the advantages could be that we are using more minority firms, so that could be good. But there are some costs to it. So the next slide is specific costs, and again, this is kind of back of the envelope. I don't think staff put a lot of effort in. I mean, they did, but they haven't really gone out to try to hire people. But so to do this, we met with the manager, obviously, and relevant finance and purchasing, and what they determined is to do MWBE outreach efforts for all contracts. It would require at the least an additional person in purchasing, which would be approximately $78,000, and an additional person in finance, which finance gave me a really wide range of numbers, and so I just picked 84,000. It could be a lot more than that. I don't know, but so those we would need to hire those positions just to monitor that. I mean, the purchasing would be trying to find all these people to send out notification to, and finance would monitor that that was actually done for each contract. My office, I've been reviewing a lot of the procurement policy, but we just don't have the bandwidth to do this additional MWBE, so we would necessarily have to rely on the checks of purchasing and finance on that. So that would be kind of a low level, and again, that doesn't account for additional staff time in the departments. I don't know if they would have to hire additional staff too. So that is my presentation here. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
I don't know if you remember the report that we received previously with regards to where Forsyth County was in regards to our goal. We exceeded the 10%.
For building projects, we do exceed 10%. That's correct.
Do you remember what that number was?
I don't know if Kyle remembers that.
I think it was
I don't know.
15% versus the 10%. But what I've asked also was that in that minority category, could that be disaggregated? And I think that there lies a lot of times the concern from constituents, especially in District A, because when you disaggregate Black, Hispanic, Asian American, et cetera, then really sometimes where the goal is exceeded is in females. And then when you go into the female categories, white females. And so we go back to the concern again that even within the categories, it seems like one is predominating, and that's the female category. And generally, those are white female businesses, which I don't have a problem with. I think that's a great thing that white females, they're at least, the average or better with 10%. But when you look at the other categories and they're less than 1%, I think that, we would all admit that those other categories need to be greater.
Well, think that was my question, so I will ask, is there any way for us to see the categories?
To see the is that something you collect, Darren?
Do you keep a report on, in terms of what that
Like,
was?
like when we get a contract that lists the minority businesses, do we break it down by women or black or American Indian or whatever?
Which ones are minority, which ones are white, female, we could do that breakdown.
You could, okay, fair enough, and
You
then.
can't,
I'm sorry.
just to be clear, you can't act on that.
Oh, no, I don't plan to.
You
I
can't
just-
say, I'm not
I
going to
just-
approve you because I don't like your.
Oh, yeah, I think we just.
Clarification purpose, I just wanted to know if there was a reporting that provides that information, that's all. I didn't expect to do anything with it, I just wanted to know.
Well, if part of the situation in regard to this is that people that qualifies as a minority business owner, if they're, if there probably is people out there in that category that may not know about they're entitled. Maybe entitled's not the right word, I'll just leave that off. Because Ms. Woodbury might use it against me, I don't know.
No, I would not. He's gonna use it against you. Gordon is, because
Well,
that
they
is getting
said
into the legality.
Leave it off.
Leave it
That
off.
If the situation is, if a lot of people out, or some people out there, that fits in the category that they could do work for the government, if that exists, it wouldn't cost us but so much, the city and county, to make it aware to where you could make your, just giving you more work, I guess, but that's the only way I see how to get into some of it, might not all of it, but you would have a, maybe a bigger list, more people that could get in, that they may not. I don't know, where's out there, people out there that's not aware of it or not. I don't.
So I would say it depends on, yes, what you said is correct. It just depends on what we're talking about purchasing. I mean, we have a lot of, service needs that need to be done quickly, and it can be hard to notify people. I mean, what they try to notify people, they contact folks that they know, and we have this requirement to get bids, which people sometimes don't appreciate, but we are putting it out there. So certainly to the extent city-county purchasing can make these lists more robust, that would be appreciated. It's just, if you set the limit for mandatory outreach too low and make it too broad, it's going to create problems for some departments.
Well, for me.
I don't think it's I think there's reasonable, practical ways to maybe, I don't even know the right words to use about anything anymore, because somebody's gonna come up and argue against it, but on anything you talk about. That's what they do up there in D.C. Just what CNN. You don't have to agree with what goes on. You can just see what goes on. And my colleague, Commissioner Bessie, I asked him for a better word than one I used in here. I used that they were, and forgot now, but it was a lot stronger word. They were just horrible to some people up there, to one another, and I asked him. I knew he had a better word for not as harsh, and so he gave me one, counterproductive. I agreed with that. I've used it some, maybe not all the time, just depends. But I think it'll be hard to get to a reasonable, practical things that can be done that pleases everybody. If there's some reasonable, practical things that I think would work, I would consider them. But now, one of the things that I believe the state law says you cannot do is if you're putting bids out there and you can't, for some reason, you cannot get enough minority participation, or maybe you do get some, and then non-priority, you can't take you got to take the lower bid. Is that correct? Okay, that I won't say it's just a law. That's it. So I don't have any answers today.
And
for
there
that
are some,
'cause
there are some things we can do, and there's some things we already are doing. I know we've held, meet and greet events with minority businesses. I know in the past, we sponsored a minority business convention or whatever it was, and so, I mean, there are things we can do, and city county purchasing does have lists, and certainly those are available. So, I mean, I believe we are trying to make some outreach. It's just, and I'm not pushing back against doing more. I just want to make sure we don't have something that's too broad that'll hurt our ability to get our work done.
Mr. Chair, I do have one suggestion, and then I have to go because I've got to represent the county on the 415 transportation meeting. One of the things that we could do is do similar to the how to submit an application for a community grant. It could be how to submit a bid for county work. Advertise the trainings as being available, and make sure that this could be for small businesses.
Sure.
But you be sure and go to organizations like the Black Chamber.
Actually,
let
I
them know about it.
just had a meeting with the president of the Black Chamber of Commerce, the local Black Chamber of Commerce, and offered to do that. And I believe our team's working with her to set up a webinar to specifically speak with all of the members and anyone else who wants to go to explain how they can do business with Forsyth County. I was going to say, on our end, we are very committed to working with everyone and really are working hard on outreach. We've participated in MWBE mixers and other things. Our city county purchasing, they do have some lists, and when we're doing requests for proposals and qualifications, we're utilizing, the city has an MWBE office, and so they have more resources that we can tap into. I think when it's not part of our normal RFP process, we don't have for every single thing we do. We also currently do not have the ability to track information that are not building contracts. And honestly, our building contracts, it's tracked on a spreadsheet currently. We do not have a sophisticated system at all. Now, what I will say is in our new accounting system, it has the ability to try to set something up, but when we have thousands of vendors that we work with. And so if that was a feature that the board wanted us to do, it's certainly something we could turn on, but it would be prospectively and would take a lot of staff time to try to go back. And then, as Gordon said, it would be tracking information that we legally aren't really allowed to use, but we certainly can do whatever the board would like us to do. But I did just want to reiterate, we're very committed to outreach and we're committed to working with minority businesses. I think it's more a question for the board on what do you really want us to do on a more formalized basis? What does that look like?
Gordon, I want to thank you on behalf of the commission for the work that you and staff have done on this matter. It occurred to me, it was a couple of months ago we asked for this. And we wanted it in March, and you all ginned it up in that period of time. And the information here has been very helpful for me. I do have some familiarity with my women business enterprises and the shell games that can occur there. And so I remain suspicious of that particular aspect of it. But the only question I had was regard to legal standing. I would think either state or federal government could step in if they wanted to. I would think a disenfranchised contractor might have that status, but would a county taxpayer also have that legal standing if you want to offer an opinion?
I probably shouldn't offer an opinion. Standing is very difficult. I think they might. I'll say they might. But, you know, I'm more worried about, you know, the state or the feds stepping in. And, I mean, it hasn't gone that far with other counties, but I know certain counties have been hauled to Raleigh and called on the carpet by the General Assembly.
Very recently, Buncombe County was called to this General Assembly with allegations that they were doing too much to assist minority businesses. I can send you their presentation. I mean, and we on the county side, not from the state, but, you know, we've all received notifications on the federal side that we had to make sure that we kind of cleaned up our DEI stuff, or we would risk losing federal funds. And so it's just a balance for us on kind of, you know, what this looks like. But again, at the end of the day, we're very committed. We will do whatever we can to partner with organizations to do more outreach. But it's really just a board policy decision on what you want us to do on a more formalized basis outside of what we are already legally required to do.
I do have a question, and I am, if anyone interested, feeling personally optimistic about where we are and trying to ideally go. But so as it relates to, it looks like, you know, the efforts around trying to build capacity, looks like a recommendation or suggestion would be positions in purchasing and finance. And I wonder, instead of positions, could we subcontract any of this kind of work out so that we're not dealing with benefits and all of that? And could that contract work be very targeted so that we could try to really see benefit? I guess that's to Mr. Redfield here.
That's really a question for the manager, I guess, but I'll speak. I'll say, you know, there are a wide variety. I don't know if that would be cost effective or not, but these are not necessarily recommendations. These were requirements if you wanted us to set that up. But I'll
Yeah,
stop
I mean, what I
talking.
would say is it depends on what a contractor does, because there's also Department of Labor regulations regarding like duties of an independent contractor versus employee. And so in my mind, what I'm thinking these employees would do would meet the definition of an employee. But again, I've not really thought about it from a contractor standpoint. So maybe I'd be interested in if you have any, you know, ideas of what that could look like. It's just within our normal structure, I'm just thinking this is where it would fall.
Well, my last comment is just to kind of respond to whether there is an effective return on if we invested in any positions, because what the 2025 economic impact highlighted, and I think I shared this with the other commissioners, but I wanted to reiterate to put on record that the key findings included here in the state of North Carolina, they looked at 8 of the main counties, including Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, but the findings found that $2.6 billion in total economic impact statewide when you invest in historically underutilized businesses, that 27,000 full-time jobs created within hub firms and another 27,000 jobs within non-hub firms, 51.5 million in state tax revenue generated. So for every $1 spent administering the state hub program, 1,347 in hub sales and $2,694 in total impact were produced. And finally, the study showed that here in Forsyth County, there was a $5 million, I can't see, but it's almost $6 million investment, but the economic impact or the return was almost 12 million. And so I don't think that when we invest in strategic ways to try to advance historically underutilized business processes, that there is a cost to the tax payer that is not returned exponentially. And so I would ask that we, really look at the findings of this study, and if there is absolutely a good return on investment, that there should be, consideration of whether we either do a position or try to subcontract out some work.
Anything else? Gordon, thank you so much. That was a very thorough report. Echo Commissioner Wilson's comments, and we are adjourned until Saturday.
Sorry I was keeping